Today on CityCast Denver. After 9 long days on the picket lines, King Soopers workers woke up Friday morning to the news that their union, the UFCW Local 7, had reached an agreement with King Soopers' parent company on a new 3-year contract.
No more picketers at King Soopers. The union representing workers say the strike is over as it reaches a tentative deal with Kroger.
But this thing isn't over yet. More than 8,000 workers went on strike, and they get to choose when to go back to work. That vote is set for today to either accept this new contract or send Union President Kim Cordova back to the negotiating table. Today is Monday, January 24th. I'm Paul Caroli in for Bree Davies, and this is CityCast Denver.
Hello.
Hello, Miguel.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I know Miguel Jimenez through some volunteer work I do on the weekends. And when we were chatting the other day about the big breakthrough in the King Soopers strike talks, he revealed that not only did he used to work for Kings, he's actually a veteran of several strikes in the 80s and 90s. So as the current workers weigh their votes on this tentative new contract, we thought it would be useful to share some of Miguel's insight into this process and perspective on what the workers are voting on today. So Miguel, you and I were chatting on Friday morning, and you told me that you used to work at King Soopers and that you'd actually been through a few strikes in your time there. What time period did you work for King Soopers?
Well, I worked there from like 1984 until 2006, somewhere, around there.
So that was maybe 2 or 3 strikes? I know there was a couple of long ones and then there was a few really, really short ones. Do you remember?
Yeah. When I first started working there in 84, we had a strike like a couple of years later, and then 96. And then there was a short one, I think.
So what was your job at King's?
Well, I started out as a courtesy clerk, and then I was promoted to a maintenance clerk where King Soopers used to have their own maintenance, in-house maintenance to clean the floors and the bathrooms and things like that. And then I was promoted to a night crew position, which was a highly, sought after position because it paid well and you had a good schedule. And those were the two main things about it.
I kind of want to talk about the quality of the job for a minute. Like I've heard from some other workers, and we talked about this survey on our show last week that showed like 14% of King Soopers employees are living without food security. And we're hearing from employees that they're not really able to live in the same community as their store is in because it doesn't pay enough and the housing prices are too high. Was it a good job working for King's?
Yes, when I first started working there, it was it was kind of like, people looked up to you in your community if you worked at King Soopers because they knew that you held a position that had a great pay, great benefits, and your family will be provided for working at King Soopers, through one paycheck of a full-time employee at a King Soopers or a Safeway. They were able to raise their family. The rents weren't quite as high, but it was a good quality of life to be a journeyman employee at either one of the grocery stores here in town. We didn't have to worry about health insurance when I started working there, and even after the first strike, our health insurance was basically free. It was paid for by the company. We had great benefits to where we would receive different types of differential pay. Like, for instance, we'd have certain holidays. We'd have like Easter off.
Yeah, now King's is definitely open on Easter, right?
Yeah, it was a really good paying job. There was no problem about food security. There was always enough hours to work in this business to where a person who really wanted to, they can, they can rack up the hours and work as much as they wanted to. So yeah, there was never any issue about food security or rent or paying your bills. No, I think it was a really sought after and really well paying job, in the 80s.
This episode is brought to you by Choir League. Choir League presents Sing and Shout, an unforgettable afternoon celebrating the powerful legacy of African American spirituals, the foundation of all American music. On Sunday, May 4th at 3:30 p.m., join Lonnie Norwood, gospel singer and teacher from the South Side of Chicago, for a workshop and performance with Choir League. Lonnie will guide folks through this powerful American art form, where it came from, and how it informed American music that came after it. You can buy tickets now on Eventbrite and enjoy the show with Lonnie, but you can also join Choir League. The group meets weekly for practice at local breweries and distilleries. Singers can sign up for 6 to 8 week sessions, and there's always a performance at the end of each cycle. There's no audition to join and no experience necessary. Tickets for the May 4th show with Lonnie Norwood are on sale now at Eventbrite. Just check the link in our show notes. For more information on the program and joining the choir, visit choirleague.com or email info@choirleague.com.
So I want to talk to you about the strike that's going on right now, because a new contract was announced on Friday morning. And so we're talking on Sunday. Tomorrow, Monday, is the day when more than 8,000 King Soopers workers with the UFCW Local 7 are going to vote on that contract. You've mentioned a few times you went through this process more than once. What can you tell me that I wouldn't see just talking to people on the picket line?
Well, I started thinking about that, and the thing is that everybody needs to go vote, because you can't be crying about the contract that you received if you didn't do anything, if you didn't vote for it. Now, a lot of, I think like maybe the 97 contract there, a lot of members did not vote on it because they didn't want to take it. They didn't want to agree to it. They didn't even show up for the vote.
Did the workers ever say no to a contract that the union negotiated?
Oh yeah. So we never took like the first thing that they handed to us, or the second thing, or the third thing. We were always trying to fight for for benefits, for better, not just better wages, not just right from the beginning better wages, but just for job security and better benefits at retirement and better healthcare benefits at retirement.
So one thing that I saw on the local news about this contract announcement from Friday was that neither King Soopers nor the union were revealing any details about what they negotiated beyond the fact that it was a 3-year contract. What were the length of your contracts back in the day?
The first negotiation I remember was like for 5 years. And then in 97, that's when they started going to those 3-year contracts. And we didn't want to do it. I could remember us hearing that at a union meeting. We used to have our union meetings at, like, say, the Coliseum when the contract times came around. And I can remember that, people booing that. Yeah. But we had to accept it, so. And then that's when things started going downhill, I think. Then they started bringing in, the 2-tier payments, or 3-tier or 4-tier pay categories, So like those people that are getting hired right now for King Soopers are not going to get the same benefits as those that are working right now. And I think that's a shame. They should, who knows, they might fight in the future and get, better benefits than anybody has ever expected.
So what do you think happened in 1997 actually, Miguel, wasn't it 1996? I think it was 1996. I've got it right here. 1996. Why was that 1996 strike and the contract that it led to such a turning point?
I think we started, it could have been, let's see. So we went from like King's to Dillon to Kroger. And then I think like when Kroger took over, that's when they started making things hard for their employees. They were always worried, it's a big company, they wanted to grow, and so they try to bust the unions, So 3-year contract, that's one way to get things moving, have them. Yeah, but I think Kroger, when they took over the company, it started to go downhill. And that was probably like when they really started to take over was like in the 90s.
Of course, that was also around the same time that Ernie Duran Jr. became president of the UFCW Local 7.
Exactly, and that's when him and his nobody knew it. I mean, I didn't. None of us knew it at the store level. I'm sure things were said, at the union level, and things were about, he was, hiring his family, and then they had these. They were getting really good jobs for high pay, and that all that pay that they got came from our union dues.
So let's say the workers approve this contract in the vote on Monday. How do we in the public? How do we know if it worked? Like, what are you looking for?
As a consumer or as a union worker?
Yeah, as a shopper.
For me, as a shopper, let's say. I would be looking to see that the employees have very good health care, not just for themselves, but for their family and for the future employees, and great benefits for their retirement. I mean, things are going to cost. I mean, groceries are going to cost. The companies always says that, we're going to have to raise prices because now we have to pay our employees this much more money or give them this much more benefit. Well, I don't think so. I think if if the company if they didn't have to pay some of look at the wages of some of those executives, and it's in the millions, tens of millions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can take a cut and help the consumer out. That's what I would be looking for, I guess, as a consumer.
Miguel Jimenez, thanks for joining me on CityCast Denver.
Okay, Paul. Thank you.
And here's what else is happening in Denver today. How bad is crime in Colorado? That's the headline of a new story from the Denver Post looking at 35 years of crime data to better understand the surge in violent crime we've been seeing reports about the past couple years. Well, it turns out the truth is a lot more complicated than it seemed. While statewide rates of homicide, aggravated assault, and vehicle theft have been up, rates for rape, larceny, robbery, and burglary are level or declining. And that's just one fact worth pondering. It's a fascinating story, and the data is well worth your time. So I'm going to add a link to our show notes and leave you with some advice. Next time you see a story about a crime wave, take it with a grain of salt. Crime is a lot more complicated than any one flashy data point can contain. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell a friend about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Our regular newsletter writer Peyton Garcia got married over the weekend, so Bree is filling in, and she's got some personal reflections on the strike in today's edition. We'll be back in your feed and your inbox tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Hope you have a good one.